Hi everybody. Today we've got Sam Brooks, secondary school PE teacher. Sam, do you want to just introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about your background and how you got into being a PE teacher?
Yep, I played school sport like most of us. Never outstanding at anything, just good at, a wide range. Studied A-level PE at South Tyneside, and that's where the interest really started to grow more for like a profession. I applied for primary school teaching, and no sooner as I kind of sent that off in the post as you did in those days, I thought, nah, done the wrong thing here, wrong thing. So I was one of those clearing people. I went through clearing, luckily ended up in Avery Hill down in southeast London and trained there, worked down there. As far as background goes for sports, I played netball, trampolining. They were my kind of better two things. Like I say, I'm not claiming any world beaters there, but they were my better ones. Sort of dropped the trampolining at university more for the social side and being part of a team, being that in that team sport. Worked down in Kent in an all-girls school for a couple of years before moving back up to the northeast. Have worked at St Thomas More in Bladen for 3 years, and then I moved over to the Easter Gateshead to Hewitt, where I've been ever since. 16, 17 years now.
Wow.
So yeah.
We'll probably talk about transitions a little bit later on as well. So making that transition at your age, going back 10, 15 years ago, all the way from the northeast, all the way down there, how was that?
I always wanted to move away to go to uni. That was I always knew there was more to go to university than just getting a degree. Hadn't planned on going that far, but after, like a bad decision on the UCAS form, it was sort of taken out my hands other than resitting or taking years out, which I didn't really want to do. And I've got family down in London, so actually, a train down there back then, 4 hours, a train over to somewhere like Liverpool, about 4 hours. So distance-wise, it was further, but transport and travel-wise, it was great. And it's, I could never imagine have gone anywhere else. It was brilliant. Best 4 years. It was it's one of the old school B.Eds as well, which I know there's not many of now, and they've got their advantages and they've got their disadvantages. But for me, it was great, and I'm lucky that I love teaching. So actually, the B.Ed, I think, give us a really good grounding. Okay. So yeah.
And is that still your advice now to the kids that you see in terms of if they are going to go to university, try to go to a university away from home because of maybe some of the life skills you get?
Yeah. On my department, we all bar one went away, moved away from home. And when we speak, we've got very different opinions and very different views and had very different experiences at university if you went away. And, and it was my dad said to us, there is more than going to university than just coming out with a degree. And it absolutely is. The life skills you learn, pushing yourself even more out your comfort zone, finding and meeting new people that you would never have met before. And I think if you stay at home, and I appreciate and understand, there's a big financial constraint now. It's like going to school. It's an extension of going to school or going to sixth form or whatever. It's not the same. Yes, you can come out with that fabulous degree, but I personally think you miss other things along the way as well, though.
Yeah, I would agree. And I did my undergrad in the States for 4 years before returning home and going to Loughborough to do my postgrad. And I think the same thing, that the life skills that you get, the ability to look after yourself, or maybe not look after yourself from time to time. I can remember the state of some of my dorm rooms. Certainly didn't look after myself as well as you probably can.
Yeah.
You learn those things, and that's invaluable, I think.
But it's better doing that when you're 19, 20 than when you're 27, 28 and moving out and trying to work and kind of deal with those things. Like you say, you make your mistakes and you learn those things, then sets you up. Definitely.
Fab. It's interesting that we've with all the people that we talked to this month, and this month is an opportunity for free learning and free storytelling, I guess, from the people that I've worked with. One of the things which is really interesting in terms of that whole storytelling stuff is that we all have some kind of story to tell, which is interesting to ourselves. But the word comfort comes out quite a lot with everybody. So either being in comfort zone or being out comfort zone. What do you think was the toughest moment for you in terms of that transition, or where were you outside your comfort zone too much that you thought, whoa, this is a little bit tough?
I had a wobble after literally the first day in lectures because I'd gone through clearing. I couldn't get on campus, so we had to go down southeast London. The university took you around housing and you picked where you wanted to go. Knew nobody, started talking to a girl on the minibus, and we were like, yeah, you seem all right, should we share? Right, okay, we would. And I ended up in a place called Plumstead. And they said, oh, it's only 15 minutes from campus. And I was like, oh, that's fine. Well, it was 15 minutes from campus, but not my campus, not where I was actually studying. And buses wise, it took about 45 minutes, which isn't the end of the world. But in southeast London, as an 18-year-old, you don't really want to be, after a night out, having to get buses. You didn't have the money for the taxis, even getting to lectures. So after the first day, I just thought, I can't do this. I'm miles away from everybody. Everybody else I was renting with, there was about 4 or 5 of us, I think, in the house. They were all in the Woolwich campus, but I was further out. And I remember just going to the phone box and ringing my mum, saying, I can't do it, mum, I'm so far away from everybody. And luckily, she managed to get me in halls. So I had a week in a house in a flat in Plumstead, and then I got into halls on Avery Hill. And that week, I think, had my parents been different people, had I persuaded them a little bit more vigorously, then I might have been home and that would have been it, done and dusted, that sort of experience over in a week. But I'm really grateful for them for being, no, you'll go across there, and now obviously speaking to them afterwards, they said, oh my God, we left you in the halls of residence after that. And Mum, I think, broke her heart all for like, 3 of the hours on the way home. It was that first week, but literally after that first week, never looked back, and I know it's one blip, but that's been over and done with.
And I guess that word, we probably describe that as some kind of resilience, wouldn't we, these days? And it is such a buzzword within the whole education sector, but I guess in the life sector, about, do we have resilience? How do we build resilience? The kids don't have any resilience anymore, that kind of concept. But I spoke to Chris Basham earlier in this program, and Chris was saying that he went to Bolton Wanderers, and the first week all he did was pretty much cry because he missed home. And he was at Bolton, and I said, oh, that's all right, I'm glad you said that, because I was in Tennessee ringing my mum on one of those phones, and I was in the same kind of process about, can I come home? I hate it. And I think we all go through that. So where do you think you got that resilience from?
I think it's got to come from your family and your parents, massively. I don't remember, but I've been told in primary school, every day, well, in sort of reception year 1, every day I'd walk into the gates holding hands with Mum, the bell would go, and that would be it. I'd make a bolt for the door, make a bolt for the gate, and Mum would come, drag us back in. I think I did that in nursery as well. I see there's a pattern building up here, isn't there, with the first few years of education, anyway, different for me. And I look at some of the kids I teach now, and I look at some of their parents, and they are absolutely thinking they are doing what is right for their kids, because I think as a parent, that's what you, or most of us, always try and do. And I think if my mum had been somebody different, she would have given in and she would have said, no, come on then, she just can't come in today. But it wasn't. It was that, no, this is how it is, and this is what you've got to do. So it was a drag back into school, and to the same extent at university, it was that drag back in. No, come on, let's give this a go. There's a solution to this. And I think that has come from them, because as a child, that's where you get your thoughts from, get your points of view before you start forming your own. And that is what you do. If it's tough, you don't give up, you give it another go, and you try harder and look at a way around that problem. And I think it's got to be parents and family.
So it's a tough one, isn't it? Because we always talk about the snowflake generation as we have now, but I guess we probably have to put our hand up. If you age somewhere between 30 and 50, we're maybe responsible for that than as parents.
I think there's so much more talk around about mental health and the lasting effects and things like that. And, there's that fear that what you do now is going to damage your kids in 15, 20 years time, and you don't know them by doing what you think's right. And I know I find myself, as a parent, second guessing, God, is this going to cause some lasting damage? Is this going to be one of those traumatic moments, even though you think you're doing what's best? And I think it's because it's so much more publicised, and I think that's a good thing. But also, I think that's where it does lead to that little bit of snowflake, you know. But I should.
I'm looking forward to the next 20, 30 years when they turn around. I don't know whether you saw the joke that was going around and said the next generation are people who've been homeschooled by alcoholics.
Yeah. Yes.
Fab. So let's get back to secondary school anyway, and what you guys do. So my thoughts are, when you leave primary school, you're pretty much one of the tallest kids, one of the biggest kids, one of the smartest kids. You have a great network of friends. You know all the teachers. You're pretty much in Comfortville, aren't you? And then we have a 6 week or 7 week window, depends on which school you go to, which we call the summer holidays. And then all of a sudden you're in the land of the giants.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what does your school do, or what do you guys recommend in terms of helping kids and helping parents to make that transition? Because I think that's a pretty big jump, isn't it?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. We have a sixth form as well. And when you look at, I mean, the sixth form are slightly more separate, but when you look at an 11-year-old coming in to the same building through those same doors with someone that could be 18 or in a few days' time, it's adults with babies, you know. We have a really good transition program actually that normally takes place I think about the end of June, who knows this year, and they come for a week. So they come for a week and they go in with their form class. They're not set, they don't get a timetable or anything, but they just move around the school, sampling different lessons for a week. The whole lunch process of getting your lunch, and just they have a separate yard for the year 7s, and it's taken over by the year 6s that week, obviously. And they're in school as much as possible in their little units. They come in at the same time, they leave a little bit early, and that goes on for the week. And it just helps the pupils kind of see what's what, have a look around. Most of them have done it on an open evening, but at that point they don't know that they're definitely going to that school. So that's what we tend to do. They sample all the lessons, meet their heads of year, meet their form teachers, try and get that bond with their form teacher. So they've just got that little bit of comfort when they come in September.
Okay, I like that program. Any top tips for parents in terms of making that transition for them? Because I see some parents, or have seen some parents over the years who get more nervous than their kids during that phase, and that certainly doesn't help the process.
Well, I think I'm kind of there this year, obviously, with my eldest, but I think it's just chill out. We've all done it. You know, we've all done that transition. And I remember going to secondary school and not really thinking it was that much of a big deal. I came from a really big primary school. Most of my friends were going up to secondary school. And I think whatever your fears are and your concerns, they need to stay your fears and your concerns. They don't need to be discussed in front of your child at all. You know, if you've got any real biggies, contact the school. But be sensible about this. We kind of know what we're doing. Most of us have done it for a while. Quite often we have a designated head of year 7, and he stays head of year 7. So he is seeing the problems and the anxieties, whether it be from the children's point of view or the pupils, a lot of times, and just kind of trust that, you know, we know what we're doing. Just as if you go anywhere, you go to the doctors, whatever, you trust them because they know what they're doing. So I think it's just, you will have fears and anxieties, let them stay your fears.
Cool. Let's talk PE for a little bit, Sam. You know, I'm a huge, big advocate of physical literacy, and with all the work that I did around the fundamentals with the government. What are you guys expecting kids to come with in terms of some form of physical literacy? Because when this transition at secondary school, where this is going to define you, I think, as a person, certainly as an athlete, you know, if you're not doing it during this period, you're going to really struggle unless you're hitting a late specialization sport like maybe rowing. But generally, this is a period that's going to define you as a person, as an athlete. So what are key traits that you're looking for your kids to be coming into secondary school with?
Just like you say, the fundamentals, you want them to be able to, the throwing and the jumping and the balance, and also the mindset as well, have the right mindset. You know as well as I do that great athletes, it's not just about ability, it's also mindset, and that goes with just school sport as well. You know, I've seen over the years lots of people that you wouldn't pick for your team because they haven't got the right attitude, and whether it be you wouldn't want to take them to another school because they're going to blow up, or whether it's going to be they buckle under the pressure, and whatever that might be. I find that when they come to us, it varies massively, obviously, not just from child to child, but from primary school to primary school, depending upon probably the teacher and the primary provision that was given or not given to them in primary school. That makes a huge difference. We have a lot of pupils that are maybe exceptional footballers, not so great at many other things because they've never tried other things, and without going on a big rant of how much football takes away, it's not just football, dancing, gymnastics. By the time the pupils are coming to us, a lot of them have already started specialising, and that leaves little to no other time for anything else, which I think is a real shame when they come. And all of a sudden they're being offered sports they may have never done before. And all of a sudden they could be really, really good, but they can't try it because they've got to go to football, or they've got to go to gymnastics, or they've got dancing, or whatever it may be. But yeah, the experience vastly different is different between what primary schools have been to, and it is noticeable.
It's not significant that you brought up football. We live in the Northeast, and football is a massive part of everybody's life, I think. Even though the three Northeast clubs, three professional Northeast clubs, are not particularly doing very well. And I can remember sitting with Trevor Brooken with the FA doing some work there a long time ago now. And he said, if you want to teach little Johnny how to play football, first of all, you need to understand little Johnny. Second of all, you need to understand football. And I still see a lot of coaches and a lot of schools where we're still doing the technical stuff about the kicking of the football, or the hitting of the tennis ball, or the hitting of the rounders ball. So it's really interesting for me to hear you turn around and say, actually, it's a mindset thing as well, because we do need to know the kid, but we also need to know, actually, if you have got some fundamentals, there's a variety of other sports you can play in. I was with the Newcastle United under 14 coach on a seminar 2 weeks ago. We were both delivering on the seminar, and she was saying that from academy to professional game is 0.001%. Yeah,
terrifying.
Yeah. Academies, they troll the kids early doors. Really, really young, in my opinion, far too young. And then all of a sudden, parents get locked into this whole, my son's going to be a professional football player and have a Ferrari and a multi-million-pound contract. Yeah.
It is, like I say, I think it limits them massively. And it's not just football. So, I love going to watch football. My time was spent on sidelines of football pitches as a child, but I think it limits. I think I had people, oh goodness me, it must be about 10 years ago now, and she was an outstanding footballer. She played for the boys up till year 9. She was always first pick for the boys. It wasn't just she was decent, she was outstanding. I think she's back at Sunderland now, actually. She was also an amazing javelin thrower. She picked the javelin up she came to athletics club one night, lovely summer's evening, and she launched this javelin, and I just got a few marker cones out, and I went, right, we'll just leave that there, don't move it. Someone go and get us a tape measure, please. I think we might measure that throw. And I think off the top, it's something like 25 metres, first throw, woof, and it just flew. And she could have had, I'm not saying she would have been an Olympian or whatever, but she could have pursued that. And she wanted to, she tried to, but couldn't, because she'd already, as soon as she'd come up into school, she was all very heavily involved in the football, and the training and the matches and the summer training and the summer leagues, and it just wiped out. But yeah, and it was a shame. But she made the decision, which obviously is ultimately up to the people, up to the child. But football kind of wins hands down in the Northeast, I think, the vast majority of the time, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And with mindset, one of the things that you really have to have as an athlete, you have to have passion for the sport. And
absolutely,
if she wasn't passionate about being a javelin thrower, then that would probably put a ceiling and a limit on what she could have done anyway, at least to a certain level, until maybe she decided that she did love that. And we fall in love with different things along the pathway, don't we? What do you guys do in terms of developing the mental side of your athletes within sports? Well, because obviously we do a lot of stuff at Durham University on performance psychology, emotional intelligence, personality profiling, culture, values, that kind of stuff. I'm intrigued to know what you guys do with that as well, within the remits of having a curriculum that you have to deliver.
I was going to say, to be honest with you, we don't get them a great deal. We have, we run a 2-week timetable. The year 7 and 8s get it twice a week. So, you know, like 4 over the cycle of the 2 weeks. The year 9s only get it twice over the fortnight, so once a week, as do the year 10s and 11s. So we don't see a great deal of them. And if I'm perfectly honest, we try and concentrate as much as we can on practical and just getting out there and getting pulse rates up and running around and, you know, getting going, because it's so limited, and that is it for a lot of them. Obviously, with the ones that, you know, have got that little bit more interest and come along to clubs, I know as far as I'm concerned, I just try and get to know them as much as possible. And you can in a smaller environment, you know, with an extracurricular club, and like you say, just trying a bit of a trial and error as to what works best for them and where they need that bit of a boost, or that bit of bringing down a peg or two, whatever it may be. And, you know, a little bit of a quiet word here and there. I think the biggest problem I find with some of the girls is their lack of sympathy, if you like, or their lack of understanding that somebody else might not. They are trying their best, they're not deliberately throwing that ball off the back line or whatever. They just can't manage it yet. They're just not as skilled, not as advanced as them. And just kind of, you know, little words here and there. Nothing major. It's not really discussed in depth until like the BTEC level 3. But with the club kids, yeah, we try and make reference as well to the leadership, determination, things like that, you know, you've shown really good leadership here by doing this, or encourage those that that could develop that. We run the leadership course, the young leaders, and that's quite a good one. And then we use those pupils to help run the primary school tournaments when the primary schools come in, you know, and they get that t-shirt and that bit of a young leaders on the back. And just sometimes those that are outright born leaders, and those that are just a little bit quieter, that will kind of encourage them to come along and do it, just to boost their confidence a little bit. And it is lovely to see them grow, particularly when they're doing the primary school festivals and things.
No, that's really good, and having somebody who can take that leadership role, I think, is key. And again, over the last month, we've been talking about a variety of different people, especially some of the people who are in the business world, about those leadership skills. And one of my favorite books is the Legacy book by the New Zealand All Blacks, and they just mentioned something simple about better people make better All Blacks. Well, my concept has always been better people just generally make better people, no matter what form of life they're involved in. And then if we can instill some really core values around leadership, and we run the coaching boardroom program at GFIS National Solutions, which is all about that transition between business and sport, and getting kids to understand things like leadership and key values and key traits that way as well. This is a difficult period, I think, for kids, isn't it, in terms of secondary school? There's a lot of big barriers, but there's also a lot of change as well. You've got maturation, you've got adolescence. I guess you've got the introduction of maybe alcohol and drugs and sex and a variety of other things coming along as well. What do you guys do to try to keep everybody on the right path, or at least with a positive mindset? We talk about growth mindset all the time, but I think sometimes it's difficult, isn't it? Because these kids are maybe not from great backgrounds, or they struggle academically, or they see this future being a footballer. How do you guys do that?
I think the struggling academically is not really an issue. A lot of the time, those that are struggling academically, you know, they come down to PE, and that is like their little haven in the week, if you like, because they're then on a level playing field with everybody else, or they could be the ones that are excelling. You know, it's not. I think it's the drugs and the alcohol and the external influences. And you can only do so much, you know. You can try, and when we do like fitness, I always start it with a bit of a, you know, like a diet and chatting about, you know, the right foods and things like that. Again, not for ages, not for a long time, because it could be that one lesson of the week, so you want to get them going. It's just tough. Plenty of, I think, talking about it openly to an extent within like a professional level of, you know, look, it is out there, but you've got to just, these are the damages that it's going to cause. This is a lifelong thing, you know, and all the dangers out there. And it's frightening. It is terrifying when you hear some of the stories and you see the reports coming in from the police and things like that. It's frightening. I think a lot of it, I don't know what the answer is, to be honest with you. You've just got to try your best, let them know that there's always, you know, another option. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And just the dangers. You can, it's like I say, it's the external stuff. When they're in school, you can only do so much.
Yeah, there's two things that springs to mind with that, Sam. Is one is the old Grange Hill, just say no concept. So I love that as a concept, because that's still what we need to do, is we need to get the kids to say no. I think the difficulty now is we need to give them the confidence, or allow them to be more confident just to say no, whatever it is, whether it's drugs, whether it's alcohol, whether it's crime, whether it's sex, whether it's not doing homework, whatever it is, they need to instill that confidence in them as well a little bit. And I do a lot of work for UCAD, and one of the athletes that we recently got a ban over the last 2 years. I'll not tell you what sport it was, but really good athlete, professional athlete, getting paid really good money, really good contract. In his environment, fab, really hard worker, loved his sport, dead passionate. As soon as he left that environment and went home, the people that he hung around with at home just were involved in partying a little bit, involved in, you know, excessive drinking, and obviously there must have been some drugs around because he tested positive. So whether he was or whether he wasn't, it was his second offence. Is that an environmental thing? Is that the fact that he grew up in that area, so he has to be involved in that? Or have we maybe let him down a little bit in terms of either primary school, secondary school, or the club, not giving him the confidence to actually turn around and say, you know what it is? Nah, that's not for me.
We see we've had a lot of sort of academy kids through the years, and one in recent years. And my biggest fear for him was in year 11, around about the Christmas time, when they renew or terminate the contract, was that they would terminate it, because I knew his group of friends and I knew what they were up to. And he always could say, oh, I can't because I'm going to the club, I can't because I'm going to... And I thought, if he gets finished, he's not going to have that, I can't, because... And, you know, none of them, I think there's this, oh, it's all the bad kids. And they're not bad. They're just caught up in it. And like you say, it's that finding that route of getting out. And he always had that get out of, well, I can't because... and I saw him about a year ago, actually, and he was still there. And he says it was coming up for renewal, and, you know, he was umming and ahhing, but he had a plan. And I think just having that little bit of escapism, if you like, if I get finished, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go there, I'm willing to go wherever. And if that doesn't work out, this is what my career option is going to be. And I think a lot of it is down to personality as well. He had that, well, you can say what you like, but I can't because... Yeah. And it's sad that he needed a get out, if you like, and couldn't just say no because it's the wrong thing to do or he didn't want to. But yeah,
it's really tough, and better people have made bigger mistakes. I was with Tony Adams online last week when the Sport Northern Ireland Zoom conference, and Tony Adams was talking about the fact that when he was at Arsenal, he almost spent a decade involved in drink, drugs, alcohol, and prostitution, but he can't remember. Just can't remember, because it was just, that was the environment he was in. He would play football and he would go and do that. And then he talked about, actually, the culture has to change that. Just because you're a good football player or a good tennis player or a good netball player, then actually you can't have that. If you believe in the fact that better people make better All Blacks, then actually your culture has to not have your best player playing, if that's the route that they go down. But tough to get them all to say no, because...
And I think it's got to be talked about. And like I say, I think there is that thought that it's the bad kids. Yeah. They're not. It's peer pressure. You know, we've all done things that you think, oh God, maybe it's not to the extent of drink, drugs or whatever, you know, and it's just being there and listening. And actually, you know, it's not, never say, well, it would never happen to one of mine. It can happen to anybody, can't it? So, yeah.
And I guess with that whole mindset stuff and barriers and problems, one of the things which, you know, I kind of, when I look back in terms of when I was at school, which was probably a lot longer than you, Sam, was that transition between what subjects am I going to take for my, you know, for my qualifications, it was O levels in those days and GCSEs now or BTECs now, whatever you guys want to do. How do you support the kids mentally and the parents around that? Because they're major decisions, aren't they? You make the decision as a very immature person about what you foresee your future going to be.
My kind of only bit of advice is choose what you enjoy doing. it is the first time in your life you've had any sort of control, regardless of how small or how big that is, over your education. And choose what you enjoy doing. Don't narrow yourself early, or I want to be at whatever and I need to do this, because if you're midway through year 10 and you think, I don't want to be a pharmacist anymore, I don't want to be a teacher anymore, and that's all my GCSEs are kind of narrowed down. So a broad area, and choose what you enjoy doing. Listen to what your teachers say. I never understand it when I hear teachers saying, oh, you've got to do this, or, you know, and I think, I always like, you'd be really good, I think you'd enjoy it, or actually, you know what, I don't think you would enjoy this very much, because it's quite a lot of written work and you love all the practical stuff and you do so much outside of school that maybe, you know, you better just listen to what they say and ultimately pick what you enjoy doing. And I think as a parent as well, you need to back off. It needs to be their decision. They can, you know, they're the ones sitting in that classroom every day, every week. They've got to enjoy it, and you can guide, but I think it's got to be their decision.
Yeah, I think you're going to thrive more with something that you're passionate about and you love and you enjoy. You might not make as much money in that subject area, because if it's something like sewing, I don't know many multi-million-pound sewing people. But, you know, if you love it that much, you can still be, you know, the top of your game in any industry, can't you?
It is, absolutely. And, you know, like with the money thing, lots of jobs, I mean, like teaching, you don't go into it thinking, oh my God, I'm going to make me millions this. You do it because you love it. And that's not, you know, I hear lots of teachers saying that, and it's not just teaching, it's so many jobs, you know, you've got to enjoy doing it. It doesn't matter if you're going to work miserable every day, it doesn't really matter what your pay slip's going to be at the end of the month. If you are miserable every week and day, you know, that's no good. So yeah, let the children decide. Yes, they're only young. That's your job to kind of give them all the facts, all the information. But ultimately, again, it goes back to this whole sort of mindset and resilience thing. It's their decision. They need to make it.
Brilliant. Well, with that in mind, Sam, you mentioned teachers, so I'm going to throw out one more question for you just to finish off, because I'm sure you're ridiculously busy with stuff at this moment in time. So my thoughts are teachers. We tend to go through primary school, secondary school, university, and then if you're a teacher, you go back into education. So one of the things which we've worked on in the last 10 years with, well, probably longer than 10 years now with teachers, is their own personal development. You guys do a lot of curriculum development and education development, but what do you guys do for yourself? Because we set goals all the way through our lives. You know, in primary school, you've got goals to get to secondary school. Secondary school, yeah, you've got some exams. College or university, you've got some more exams, then you get a job. And then I think with a lot of teachers, they then stop their own personal development at some stage. What do you guys do in terms of, you know, developing yourselves as people? Not as teachers, not education-based stuff, but just generally as people.
That's a good question. Do you know what it is? I'm not really sure. I think there's so much focus on career and what you're going to do and what you're going to do. And for me, it was always, right, I'm going to work, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to get a head department. That was where my sort of happy place, if you like, that's where I want to go. I did that, and then it was a temporary thing with the school sports partnership and stuff. Yeah. And then I came back down, and then I had a family, and only in the last couple of years that I'm like, right, what do I need to do now? What do I want to do? And I thought, I don't want to be head of department. I've done that. I'm going to go more pastoral. So I've kind of started working towards that again. As a person, I think it's just, there's a lot of shift, like you say, with the whole emotional development and things like that. We've just been taken over by a trust, and well, about a year ago now, and we get a lot more emails about well-being and do this and access to these kinds of courses that are a bit more of a personal, as opposed to just, you know, teaching. That's become a lot more. But I think for me, just on a personal thing, it's getting out and actually playing sports still, and having a bit of you, as opposed to not just the teacher, not just for me, like the mother, the wife. It's actually me going out and doing stuff. And there's years that I haven't done that for various reasons. Only a few, mind, but it's different. You need to get out and do things for you. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think that really answers your question, but I'm not sure, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a good question, and we've well, in the world of business executives have always had business coaches and executive coaches, and we run a program called the G10 program for donkeys now. But we also started to run a GT10 program, which is purely for teachers, because I think teachers don't do anything personally. They're so wrapped up in the environment, whether it's primary school, secondary school, and actually their career within education. And then at some stage, and then families maybe as well, at some stage they then go, oh, I've actually done nothing myself. Who am I, and have I grown and stuff like that? And I think, like I said, business world does that. Sport does that naturally, because you've got coaches, you've got teams to play for, you've got Olympics to go to, where teachers kind of just stop for some reason. Now, just curious in terms of your thoughts on why do you guys stop? Or is it just because you become a little bit institutionalized and forget about yourselves?
Oh, absolutely. I think you do. I have never, and like I say, there's advantages and disadvantages. I've only ever worked in education. I've never been, and I went straight through. So at 22, I graduated and started teaching. And yeah, don't get us wrong. There's been blips over the years when I've thought, right, what else am I going to do? I've had enough. And I'll be honest with you, I'm doing it because I love doing it. I do. There's lots of things I would change, and there's lots of things like any job that you think, oh God, I can't stand this, or I wish we could change this. But ultimately, being in the classroom, playing out on the field or in the sports or whatever, it's brilliant. It's great, that connection you make with certain kids, and just, that day that you teach a 12-year-old how to do a forward roll and a little face lights up and you're like, brilliant, love it. And it becomes, if you like, bit consuming, like all consuming, and you could spend, like most jobs, I'm not being, oh, teachers, we've got it tougher than everybody else, because no, everybody's got it tough, but you could continue planning and preparing and doing stuff every hour God sends, and I think some people do get caught up in that, but I think for me it's sport. It's going out and having that run around a netball court and going training and and doing that kind of pulls you away, and you need to do that. You need to have, like you say, but as far, like, I have noticed since becoming part of an academy, becoming a little bit more business-fied, if you like, that there is things coming out a lot more as opposed to when we were local authority.
Fab. Sam, thank you very much for your time. Great insight into the world of secondary school and the mindset of a teacher, but also the kids in terms of how they progress through the school as well. For everybody else, if you guys want to subscribe and share, that'd be fab. We've got a whole week of education from primary school, secondary school, to the dreaded Ofsted people coming in as well. But all good learning, all great to see what the pathway looks like, because that's what we all have to go through. That's what all of our kids have to go through in order to get through to university or into a job that they like doing. So thank you guys very much. And Sam, thank you very much. Hope you have a great day.
See ya.